Well, the first time I knew who my father was, I was 23, and I was 2 weeks away from being married. And I said to my fiancé, I said, I can't marry you. I don't know who I am.
I was not born out of love. I was the living proof of a mistake that all of Hollywood helped my mother hide. Judy Lewis said that sentence only once in her life, but it was enough to expose a secret the most powerful film industry in the world had buried for more than half a century. No one outside old Hollywood's inner circle knew that Judy's birth was not merely a scandal. It was the result of a night in which her mother actress, Loretta Young, had been placed in a situation where she could not protect herself. And because of that terror, Judy's very existence was something Loretta feared, felt powerless before, and could never admit. To the world, Loretta was the saint of the silver screen. But to Judy, she was the trembling woman who tried to hide the child whose face reminded her of the nightmare she never wanted to remember. Judy didn't grow up wondering whether her mother loved her. She grew up wondering something far more painful. Was I the thing that caused my mother a lifetime of sorrow? In this piece, we will walk into the darkness. Hollywood locked away the untold origins of Judy Lewis, the fear Loretta Young carried all her life, and the moment before Judy closed her eyes for the last time, when she finally understood why her mother never found the courage to tell the truth. Let us turn back time to the place where Hollywood's darkest secrets began. Before I leave this world, I need to say, the thing I spent my entire life avoiding my mother had me in days when she no longer had the right to choose. These were the weary, heavy words Judy Lewis spoke in late 2009, when she had less than 2 years left to live. A sentence soft as breath, yet carrying the full weight of over 70 years of silence. And to understand those words, one must follow everything Judy revealed about her mother, things Hollywood once hid as if they had never existed. Those secrets began when her mother, Loretta Young, was only 22 and filming Call of the Wild alongside Clark Gable, the most powerful man in Hollywood at the time. According to Judy's recollection of a rare moment when her mother opened up, Loretta once said that there was a night she couldn't walk out of the dressing room, not because she wanted to stay, but because she felt she had no voice in what was happening. She never told the details, never described what occurred behind that half-closed door. But Judy understood that moment was the origin of every tragedy in her life. The following months for Loretta were like living inside a locked box. Judy said her mother once described the moment she realized she was pregnant as a cold wind sweeping through her entire body. Loretta sat on the bathroom floor, holding the business card of a discreet clinic, whispered among actresses of the time like a forbidden secret. But even after dressing, even after reaching for the doorknob, every time she tried to leave the house to solve the problem, the fear of being seen, even accidentally, pulled her back. Once, just spotting a journalist outside the building for an unrelated event made Loretta slam the door shut and collapse against it, crying as if the ground beneath her had vanished. Under pressure from the studio, the press society, and her own paralyzing fear, Loretta crafted another story to disappear behind. Not the rumored European rest cure, but a retreat to a small house in Venice Beach, the place Judy later called where my mother hid from her own life. Only an elderly housekeeper lived with her, a woman who often looked at Loretta with concern, but never dared ask questions. Night after night, Loretta sat for hours by the window, listening to the waves as if they were echoing the truth she was desperately trying to avoid. When Judy told this story, she did not blame her mother. She simply said my mother lived in fear for so long she no longer knew what to hold on to or what to let go of. And the thing she was forced to let go was Judy from the very first moments of her life. The child was born on a cold, windy night. Loretta looked at her daughter for less than 3 minutes. Not because she rejected her, but because, as she later told Judy, "Your cry reminded me of the thing I wanted most to forget." After that, Loretta sent Judy to a Catholic orphanage. The official reason was simply unable to provide care at this time, but the deeper truth was that Loretta couldn't bear to face the past her daughter's presence represented. Judy recalled that, when her mother admitted this, her voice was small, as if afraid of shattering something fragile in the air. "I cried when I left the orphanage," Loretta said. "Not because I left you there, but because I didn't know if I'd ever be brave enough to come back." Time moved on, and Hollywood didn't slow down for anyone. Loretta's career wavered as reporters questioned her disappearance. But the world is generous toward those who know when to stay silent. When Loretta finally returned to the public eye, the press praised her as the image of purity, virtue, and ideal Hollywood womanhood. In one article, she was called America's most wholesome star. Judy remembered her mother's hands shaking so hard the edge of the paper cut her skin. When the housekeeper asked if she was all right, Loretta only gave a strained smile. But Judy believed her mother wasn't trembling from pain. She trembled because her private truth and the world's version of it were complete opposites. While Judy remained in the orphanage crib, Loretta lived between two realities: the adored star and the young woman suffocating under the weight of her past. Some nights, according to Judy, her mother stood for a long time before the mirror, unable to meet her own reflection. These were the nights she realized she had to bring Judy home, even if only under a different name. When Judy was nearly 2, Loretta returned to the orphanage to reclaim her child. But she didn't reclaim her as a mother. She signed the papers as an adoptive parent. This decision was the protective shield Loretta thought would save them both, but in truth, it only distorted everything further. Judy said that when she discovered this at 23, she stayed silent for a long time. "I understood why she did it," she said, "but understanding didn't stop me from feeling hidden." When Loretta returned to the screen, Hollywood welcomed her with arms full of admiration. The press continued to praise her saint-like image. But in the Beverly Hills home, while Judy was still too young to grasp where she stood in the world, Loretta lived with a truth everyone else ignored. Judy said she could never forget the image, a mother radiant for cameras, but falling into long, aching silence before the mirror at night, as if asking herself who she was now. And all of this, the fear, the secrets, the layers of disguise, formed the foundation for everything Judy would face in the years ahead. A quiet childhood filled with unanswered questions, and a mother who loved silently, but hid that love behind countless walls. Sometimes I thought my mother looked at my face the way someone looks at a ghost from their past, and it hurt her so much she couldn't bring herself to touch me. That was something Judy Lewis once said in an interview. Near the end of her life, not to blame her mother, but to describe the truth she lived with. Judy understood she wasn't just a child in Loretta Young's eyes. She was the embodiment of the man her mother spent a lifetime trying to forget. The first time Loretta saw Judy laugh, the child's small ears stuck out just like Clark Gable's. A child's smile should melt any mother's heart, but Loretta froze. She set Judy back into the crib and stepped away as if distance could steady her breath. Later, telling Judy this, she said, "Only I didn't hate you. I just couldn't bear the resemblance." But for a child, that resemblance became an invisible needle pricking her entire childhood. Family photos were no different. In the first picture, Loretta requested more than 10 hats, lace, wool, felt of every color, anything that could hide Judy's ears. When the photographer asked why, Loretta replied with a tight expression, "She's a bit self-conscious about them." No one understood, but everyone sensed her tension. Even at 2, Judy grew up surrounded by the feeling that something in her face wasn't meant to be seen. As she grew older, the truth pressed harder. The hat stayed for years. If Judy ran in the backyard and her hat slipped off, Loretta hurried toward her, replacing it almost frantically. Not harshly, but with a panic so sharp, Judy stumbled. As if the mere sight of those ears could collapse Loretta's world. Later, Judy said, "I didn't understand why she feared my ears so much. Only years later did I realize she wasn't afraid of me. She was afraid of the memory I brought back." At 7, the resemblance to Gable grew even clearer. During a checkup, the doctor said ear correction surgery was best done at puberty, but Loretta shook her head immediately. The sooner, the better. Her voice was so firm, the doctor stopped explaining and simply looked at Judy with silent sympathy. The surgery happened quietly. Judy endured sleepless nights of pain. But Loretta stayed awake too, not to comfort the child, but because she herself was torn by relief and guilt. Relief that the mark of Gable was fading. Guilt that she had let her child suffer to erase a memory she feared. Once backstage at a TV program, someone joked, "She looks just like Clark Gable." Loretta's face turned deadly pale. She immediately took Judy away without a word. For the rest of the day, Judy was too young to understand, but the feeling of her mother avoiding her only grew. During interviews, when reporters asked whether she wanted biological children, Loretta always answered with something that cut deep. "I've never had children. I don't think I'm suited for it." Judy often stood backstage, hearing every word, each one, dropping into her heart like stones into cold water. That night she asked, "Am I your real daughter?" Loretta was silent for so long that time seemed to stop. Then simply said, "Don't ask that again." It wasn't a denial. It was the plea of a woman trapped between truth and the image the world forced her to maintain. As Judy grew older, Loretta lived in 2 worlds that never met. Publicly, she was the graceful, virtuous star. At home, she was the woman who stood before the mirror at night, eyes hollow, searching for the version of herself she was, before everything happened. Judy saw it all, but said nothing, because she knew her mother didn't want anyone touching those sealed memories. Judy's childhood had no shouting or harsh discipline. Instead, she grew up inside silence. Silence when her hat fell, silence when someone said she looked like Gable. Silence when Loretta denied having children. Silence in the unanswered question. She never dared ask, "Did my mother love me?" "I don't think she hated me," Judy said before she died. "I think she didn't know how to love me when my face always pulled her back to a place she never wanted to remember." And it was all of this, the suffocating silence, the fear, the secrets that led Judy to her final understanding near the end of her life. When she finally looked back at her mother with a compassion neither of them had been able to give each other for decades. The day I learned the truth, I didn't cry because of who my father was. I cried because I realized my entire childhood had been built on words my mother never had the courage to speak honestly. Judy Lewis said that near the end of her life, when she was finally calm enough to look back at the shattered pieces she had spent years trying to assemble, but never fully could. And it all began on an evening that seemed ordinary, the night before her own wedding. That day, Judy and her fiancé sat on the curb under the pale yellow streetlights of Beverly Hills. The air was still, as if the whole world were holding its breath. When Judy asked why he looked tense, he didn't answer at first. He simply glanced at her small ears, something Judy had always thought was just an odd feature on her face. Then in a low, soft voice, he said, "You really don't know. Hollywood knows. Clark Gable is your father." Those words entered Judy's ears like someone had just ripped away the only layer of protection she had. At that moment, the wedding ring she was twirling slipped from her fingers, hit the pavement, rolled once, then lay still. But Judy didn't notice. Her mind felt pulled out of her body, drifting in an emptiness she had never experienced. She remembered staring at her fiancé for a very long time, unable to speak, as if her voice had been strangled by the truth. That night, Judy returned to her apartment, turned on every light, and stood in front of the mirror. She studied her face, her eyes, her nose, her chin, the features she had seen for 23 years. But for the first time in her life, she looked closely at her ears. And in that moment, she understood her fiancé wasn't trying to hurt her. He was telling her what all of Hollywood already knew, except for her. Judy later said the realization felt like discovering her entire life had been a play one where she was the only actor who didn't know the script. But the most painful part wasn't looking like Clark Gable. The most painful part was realizing that the one person who should have told her the truth from the beginning, her mother, was the one who let her grow up in confusion and doubt. Even so, Judy didn't confront Loretta immediately. For 8 years, she lived with a truth suspended between mother and daughter, a truth neither had the courage to touch. Judy waited until she felt strong enough to ask. And Loretta, over those years, sensed her daughter slipping away in ways she didn't know how to stop. When the conversation finally happened, Judy recalled that her mother looked like someone lost inside her own home. Loretta sat down, her hands trembling so badly that the glass she held tapped against the arm of the chair. She couldn't look Judy in the eye. And when Judy asked in a voice calmer than she expected whether Clark Gable was truly her biological father, Loretta needed several seconds to breathe. Then the confession came out uneven, incomplete, but clear enough that Judy could not deny it. "Yes, and I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner." There was no embrace after that, no crying, no release. Only two women, one who had lived a lifetime in fear, and one who had grown up in the shadows of a secret sitting quietly in a room filled with silence. Years later, Judy decided to write a memoir, hoping to piece together the parts of her life that had been twisted. The book wasn't meant to accuse her mother, it was meant to reclaim herself. But for Loretta, it opened a door into memories she had spent decades locking away. When the memoir was released, Loretta turned on the TV to watch her daughter's interview. But Judy recalled that her mother couldn't watch for even a minute. She turned off the television and sat alone in the living room, the entire night staring at a photograph of Judy at age 3, one of the rare pictures where Judy wasn't wearing a hat to hide her ears. The next 3 years were a long silence. The two didn't speak. Each stood on one side of a fracture neither knew how to mend. Judy wrote dozens of letters to her mother, all of them left unsent in a drawer. Not out of anger, but out of fear they would cause Loretta more pain. Meanwhile, Loretta, according to close house staff, spent nights rereading old journals, tearing out every page related to 1935, as if erasing words could erase memories. But some truths once spoken can never be undone. And Judy eventually realized that truth might free her, but it chained her mother all over again. This was the beginning of Judy's journey toward forgiveness, something she only achieved at the very end of her life. The cruelest irony of my life is this: it took me nearly a lifetime to understand that the person who hurt me the most was someone who had been hurt long before I ever existed. Judy Lewis said that a few months before she passed away, as if she had spent her entire life walking around a wound and finally found the exit. Looking back at her hidden childhood and the strained adulthood shaped by truth, Judy realized forgiveness wasn't a gift to her mother, it was the door through which she could finally step out of her own darkness. In her final years as a therapist, Judy often sat across from young patients, trembling girls who spoke of abandonment, of feeling like burdens of questions without answers. Once, as a young woman, tearfully described feeling unloved in the way she should have been loved, Judy felt her own throat tighten. She realized she wasn't just listening to a patient, she was holding the younger version of herself, the child who once wore countless hats to hide what her mother couldn't face. Judy cried after that session, and in her tears, she finally understood the truth she had spent decades avoiding. Loretta Young had been a victim too, of Hollywood, of silence, of expectations, of an era that forced women to bury their pain to preserve an image. The transformation led Judy to the last afternoon tea she shared with her mother, a moment she held in her memory like a burning photograph. Loretta sat across from her, looking far older than the Hollywood star the world remembered. Judy said that on that day, her mother looked at her for a very long time, longer than usual, with eyes searching for words that had been trapped inside her for decades. But Loretta only pressed her lips together, then lowered her gaze to her teacup. Judy understood that her mother still couldn't speak the full truth because she had spent an entire lifetime fearing that saying it aloud would make everything collapse. Instead of waiting for what would never come, Judy placed her hand gently over her mother's and smiled. "I understand. You don't need to say anything anymore." It was the first time those two women truly saw each other, with no walls between them. Near the end of her life, on an afternoon lying in her hospital bed, Judy told a close friend that she had finally found peace. "I forgave my mother," she said, not with bitterness, but with a strange, soft tenderness. She spent her whole life being forced to be strong, to be pure, to be silent. She was pushed into a corner with no way out. I can't blame her for not knowing how to open her heart to me. I don't want to become yet another ghost haunting her. When Loretta passed away in 2000, Judy stood before her mother's grave for a very long time. There were no tears, no cries, only the silence of someone who had lived through enough pain to understand that the ending was never about who was right or wrong, but about the burdens each person carried. On the cold headstone, Judy placed a pair of small earrings, a simple piece of jewelry, yet deeply symbolic. She once said the earrings represented the thing that had caused her mother so many years of agony. The ears. Loretta couldn't bear to look at the ears resembling Clark Gable, the ears that had forced Judy into hiding. By placing them on the grave, Judy wanted to say that what had once been a wound had finally been healed, what had once been hidden had now been brought into the light, and that she had finally stepped out of the shadow where both she and her mother had been trapped. That final chapter of their lives was not the collapse of a family, but a release. Judy left this world with a calmer mind because she knew she had returned the truth to herself, to her mother, and to the life they had both endured through far too much silence. And in that forgiveness, perhaps for the first time in her life, Judy truly grew. Beyond the pain her mother had never found the words for. What makes Judy Lewis's story remarkable is not that she was the daughter of two Hollywood legends, but the way she emerged from the secrets that the world had woven around her. Her life was not a journey to find her father. It was a journey to find the truth about love, silence, and forgiveness. She grew up wondering why her mother kept a distance, why she had to wear hats to hide her ears, why Loretta Young chose silence in the moments that needed tenderness the most. And finally, when her life reached its fragile edge, Judy understood both mother and daughter had been victims of an era that gave women no choices, no voice, and no space for their pain. Judy's forgiveness was not the noble kind people romanticize. It was simply the moment she stopped blaming and saw her mother as a human being, a woman who had endured far more suffering than Hollywood had ever known. In the moment Judy placed the small earrings on her mother's grave, decades of resentment and silence settled gently into the earth, leaving behind only the quiet weight of love resting with the mother she had just lost. And when she told these things before she died, Judy didn't want pity. She wanted to leave behind a reminder that sometimes what we mistake for coldness is simply fear without a name. That some people hurt us not because they are cruel, but because they were never taught how to love without trembling. And that forgiveness, even when it arrives late, can soften a lifetime filled with wounds. If Judy Lewis's story touched you, feel free to share your thoughts below. Do you believe people can find peace after going through so much pain? Do you think silence can sometimes be more cruel than words? Share your reflections. And if you want to continue exploring the forgotten lives behind Hollywood's bright lights, follow the channel so you won't miss the next stories. Because sometimes the truth behind the smiles on screen is more unforgettable than the roles they ever played.